Good morning. Morning. Still good. What? Huh? Both of those are on the same topic, so it's just one. I think the title in the description is personal. Let's see, not the personal mission statement, but time management, something like that. This is that's the bottom. So, okay. Okay, so that's 4. Yeah, there's the handout.
they can mention the words. Abstracts and fossils. Christians. Place. Goals. Understanding your passion. Yeah. That doesn't remember what is it just has the personal attachment, family passion. It doesn't have what you did from last year. This past year. That's on the yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. But what I do, I don't have a different PowerPoint presentation. So one time, add 2 or 3 sessions. You are my king. This stops after the pyramid. Okay. Let's see. The one I uploaded yesterday was managing time and priorities. You see that one anywhere? No. Mm-hmm. In the glory. Okay, I've got to keep this on for now, but when we get done, I'll go back and look. It's certainly possible that I'll check the other course that I put a wrong date on it, so it's not uploading because the date's not allowing it to. That's the possibility. Sorry for the trouble. Alright. Just trying to make sure I get my thoughts in order. Go. Be able to break this out. This piece. Yeah. I love her. Oh, yes. Thanks for reminding me. How are you? In the dash. Morning, Terry, Mauricio, Lace. Good morning to you. Tell me if you can see the whiteboard. Let's see if we do that. Try that. We're going to be doing some whiteboard stuff today, so hope you'll be able to see that. It's going to be hard to see because these things aren't writing very clearly.
What I do is I basically
Good morning, everybody. Everybody well? Guess the ones that aren't well aren't here. So glad you're well and here. Today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to do some practicing. So I hope you have something to write with. We're going to practice thinking through how we align our day with our purpose. Okay? So you'll want to go back to the circle. Let's see if we can use both sides of this. And you can, I'm trying to keep this where the folks online can see it as well. Thank you. Maybe that one will work even better. Remember the circle, and you got God in the middle. So we're not going to try to prioritize him. And you could just have 4 sections. You could have 5 sections. 4 sections would be just here. So if you've got your greatest purposes, and we talked about the fact that your highest priorities will be relational, because you're made as a relational being. You're only going to thrive where you're feeding and nourishing your relationships. That might be work relationships, might be family, might be yourself, right? Spirit, soul, and body. Keeping yourself integrated. That's spirituality. So how many of you have taken some time to fill in, given some thought to the 4 or 5 top most important things in your life? Those relationships. Give me some. I know we're jumping in here fast, but these classes are short and our time gets away from us real quickly. I want to give you some time to practice. So give me some of your top 4 or top 5. Give me one. Family. Okay. We're going to put family right here. Family means different things for different ones of us. But if you put in family, then you know what that means. Those are some key relationships. Hopefully it's extended family beyond you and one or two others. Moms, dads, aunts, uncles. There's lots of things there. What's another top priority? Okay, mother would be family, right? Okay, we'll keep that there. Student. Okay, that's a role. So we could say, let's broaden it out just a little bit for the purpose of the things you're going to need to put under there. Let's put personal growth there, because that's education, that's student, and there's lots of relationships that are involved in that. So as you're thinking about it, we gave you a whole bunch of words, but you want to use the word that is going to cover the broadest area. What's another one of your top 4 or 5 priorities? Has to do with your role, your purpose. Leadership, okay. So leadership, we'll use that one. Let's see. I'll have to explain something to you. I'm left-handed when I'm sitting down, and I'm right-handed when I'm standing up. Is that weird? Yeah, it's weird. And neither one of them are any good. So if one was better than the other, I would try to stick with that. But it's just who I am. So, and it's probably, if any of you are left-handed, when you're in 1st, 2nd grade, they're teaching you to write, and they think there's something wrong with you if you're left-handed. So they keep sticking the Crayola in your right hand, so you end up with some of that. Okay, so leadership would be one of your gifts. Okay, so whatever your gifting is, think about your top 3 or 4 gifts that God's given you. He's going to flow through you into relationships through that gift. Okay, so the gift is not actually for you, it's actually for someone else, but God uses you as the conduit. So when you think leadership, think relationships that you're providing a gift to. In any of your spiritual gifts, strengths, you want to think the relationships I'm providing the gift to. And we've talked about this before, don't want to harp on it too much, but if you don't have any relationships, you don't have any ministry. You can have a gifting for leadership, but you're not leading anybody. John Maxwell says if nobody's following, you're not a leader. You're just out taking a long walk, right? You're just all by yourself. So leadership, think the relationships that are impacted by your leadership. That's what you're stewarding. Okay, so Harvard study, let me break it down to you a little different way. Harvard leadership study says there's only 3 things that any of us steward. 3 things. One is ideas. One is material. That is assets, stuff. And one is people. So the greatest CEOs and the greatest leaders steward these things well, but especially people. Especially people. You can have all kinds of ideas, but if you don't have any friends, those ideas don't ever go anywhere. They die with you, right? You can have all kinds of wealth, all kinds of riches, all kinds of money, but if you don't have any friends, guess what? You're going to just die with all that stuff around you. And Jesus says, then whose will these things be? So we manage 3 things. And that might help us to say, this is not that complicated. Which of these 3 things do I need to manage? Part of what we're trying to get to in this class, through all of this little incremental work we've done now, is to get you to a place where every morning, the first thing you're doing, yes, you're spending time with the Lord, and you're thinking, and in your thinking, you're reflecting about these 3 things. What am I going to do to steward the people in my life, the ideas that I have, and the material, the resources that are mine to steward? That's really what your life and your day is about. And you have to have God in the middle of that one as well, because he's the only one that really knows how. Let's fill in this one more, because this is going to be quadrant 2 for us. Quadrant 2. We'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so anybody got another one? Family, leadership, Your personal growth, education, student role. What's another role you might have? Okay, good. Employee. Okay, so we could, because we hope you won't always be an employee, we could just call it business. So I might suggest that instead of employee, though that might be your role, best identification of it now, the Lord will eventually give you employees. If you steward these ideas well and people well, you won't be an employee forever. You should get that settled in your mind. Employee is really a slave to another man's vision. Is that a new thought for you? A slave to another man's vision. You see, the Hebrew plan, the plan of God that we see through Scripture, is that fathers train up their sons to take over their business. So they start out looking like an employee, but they become the employer, right? What did the Industrial Revolution do? The Industrial Revolution broke down the family unit. The first big breakdown of the family unit was the Industrial Revolution. Why? Sons and daughters got tired of the slow process. We see that in Luke 15, prodigal son. They got tired of the slow process, and some decided, you get enough individualism preached to you, decide, I don't want to run dad's jewelry shop. I don't want to be a doctor like my dad. I don't want to be a clothier or seamstress like my dad, or a banker, whatever it is. I want to do my own thing. Well, there's truth to that. We see that in our various strengths. But what happens in the family plan of passing down an inheritance from fathers to sons? What happens? Well, you turn ideas. Your father gleans the ideas because he's got the experience. He passes those on to you. That's the relationship, father to son. And now you get to inherit all of his material assets to run it with. But what happens? When manufacturing came on the scene in the Industrial Revolution, sons and daughters realized they could leave father and mother, run off and join another man's vision and get paid every week. And if they did well, it looked like they got ahead. And it might be indeed that they did get ahead if their fathers weren't very successful. But it became the first broken link of the current breakdown of the family is when sons and daughters started leaving the tutelage of the fathers and mothers and serving another man's vision. Of course, the goal there for the other man is to always keep you an employee. That's why they give you raises, to keep you as an employee. God's plan and God's pattern is to set you above and not beneath. God's plan and pattern is to give you enough stewardship over this thing that you don't stay an employee very long. Okay, I don't want to get sidetracked there, but there's a great social societal study of the 60s riots in Watts in LA. And the thing that triggered the study was why are the minorities destroying each other's stores? We would tend to think it was black on white or white on black. But when you look at the LA riots, it was actually black on Asian and black on Hispanic and Hispanic on Asian. The minorities, so they began, why are these minorities destroying each other's stuff? Part of it was a worldview, and part of the worldview, let's say in the Jewish community, was they still embraced this idea that fathers are going to raise up sons and daughters. The Asian community, very much the same thing. The Hispanic community, very much the same thing. It's not to say one community is better than another. It's the different values. And what they found were the Asian families would come over and they would all live in one place. They'd buy a little shop on the corner. They would all live upstairs above the shop. The sons and daughters would learn how to run the shop. They would make enough money to go buy another shop. And before the sons and daughters were 30 years old, they owned their own store. So they're no longer just the employee. Now they own their own store. And they start doing the same thing for their kids. And pretty soon they own all these stores. So a worldview or a mindset that says, I'm going to receive what my mother and my father have to give me, and it's going to accelerate me. That became very apparent. In the Hebrew culture, they will give each son $50,000. Now, this is kind of today's standard. It's changed, of course, over the years, but a son grows up, and they'll give him $50,000 to start his business. If he fails in that business, they'll give him another $50,000 to do it again. If he fails the second time, they say, you're not wired for the business. Go learn to play the violin or something like that. In other words, strategy for getting you out of the employment mode and into the employer mode as soon as possible. I say that just to try to alert you. The sooner you can get out of the employee mode and get into the employment mode where you're employing others, then the sooner you're going to be blessed. And all of this will help you to do that. Okay, but the mindset needs to be there. So instead of just thinking employee, that's how I got off on that rant, sorry. Instead of just thinking employee, think business. Okay, if you're an employee, learn that business so that you can run it someday, if that's what you want to do. If it's not what you want to do, then get in something that you do want to do and then learn that, right? Mentoring, learn that. Okay, so let's say we're going to use these. Now, you can use yours, but we're going to practice some now. We got family, leadership, which would be gifting, personal growth, which would be what? Your own interpersonal relationship, nurturing spirit, soul, and body. That's a daily thing. And then we've got business. Okay, that's, let's say, how we're going to make our money, how we're going to feed our family. Let's use those four. I'm just going to take employee out, though you understand what we mean there. If you're an employee, we're talking business. Now, what I want to do is flip this around for you. And I want to say what we're going to do is we're going to put, first we'll ask the questions. This is your time matrix, your grid. What's urgent? What's not urgent? Okay, remember we talked about that the other day? And then what's important? What's not important? Everything that's urgent is not necessarily important. It's important to somebody, or it wouldn't be urgent, but it may not be important to you in terms of your long-term purpose. So, urgent, important. Urgent, not important. Not urgent, important. Not urgent, not important. Now, what we want to do is we want to see where do the four top priorities we just listed, where do they fit here? Let's just assume that we're going to work with these four. I'm going to use these. You can put in whatever you want to, but I'm going to use these. Let's say personal growth and development. Is that urgent or not urgent? Well, it all depends on whether you leave it to the last thing or not. If you see it as a daily responsibility, then it's not urgent. And is it important or not important? Of course, it's highly important. So I'm going to put personal growth over here in this not urgent but important. This is Q2. Personal growth. We could use a number of different things here. We could do spiritual development. We could talk about meditation. We could talk about Bible reading. All of those things will fit under this personal growth. That might be a seminar that you go to. Whatever it is to develop you from the inside out. What we're going to do the next couple of weeks as we kind of land the plane on this class is we're going to talk about how to develop yourself at the deepest place. How to develop yourself at the deepest place. That impacts everything else. Okay? So personal growth. What else do we have? We had family. Let's ask the questions. Is family urgent? Well, if you don't tend to it daily, something will get urgent about family, right? But as we're planning our life in the long-term view, is it urgent? No, in reality, most family stuff is not screaming all the time. There's stuff that needs to be done, but it's very easy to overlook it, right? If you're married, we got anybody else married in the house besides myself? Okay, got a couple. Some married. How many of you know it's easy to overlook the value of that marriage relationship on a daily basis and think, well, we celebrate Valentine's and we celebrate our anniversary once a year. You know, so you got 2 celebrations a year, and yeah, I'll give them something for Christmas. And how many of you know if you don't feed that relationship on a daily basis, like feeding a tender plant, you're going to have problems. So we don't want it to live over here in the urgent. We want it here. So we're going to put the same thing. We're going to put, what was that? Family. Family. There will be some urgent things that come up. And when that comes up, you can deal with that as an urgency. But here's the big plan. Family has got to be daily. How I nurture my wife, Scripture talks about washing her with the water of the Word. Okay, so how I nurture my wife daily is very important. One of the mistakes I made early on as a young man was thinking that business was much more important. And when I left my wife at home, I'm all about the business. And she would call me just wanting to say hi. And I would, I'm in a meeting. Did that nurture a good, warm, I come home and she just, no, a little cold there. Why? Because she feels put off. And then I'm going to end up pushing this over into an urgent category. So family has to be daily. We have to be nurturing the relationships of our life daily. Okay, let's talk about business. Or if you're in ministry, could be pastoral. Now, I do not like to mix business and ministry. And there are some that do it very well. They can own a couple of businesses and pastor a church. Okay. I can't do that, but some can. But for me, if I'm talking business, I'm thinking about ministry because I'm called to do ministry. So I would use a different word here, but it's the same thing. Whatever you're doing, the primary vehicle you're using to put bread on the table, to pay your rent, be that. Is that urgent? Again, it's urgent if you don't tend to it, but we know we're going to be dealing with that every day. So we're going to put it over in this category. And then the same thing for, what was the fourth one? Leadership. Okay. Gifting. So basically what we're going to do then is I'm going to look for a towel. I'm going to say this is really my A box. This is my B box. This is my C box. These are A's. These are at the top of my list. These are urgencies. They'll end up at the top when they come. So I'm going to have that right underneath the A's, and this will be the C's. What's a C? A C is something that's urgent, but not important. Not important. It's probably going to be something that's very important to somebody else that I care about. And so their urgency becomes my urgency, and part of the relationship is that I pick that up and walk with them in that. So I have to keep some room for that. All right. And then Q4, we're going to call D, but D is neither urgent nor important. And D is something we're going to learn how to avoid. So here's what I want you to think about. When you're spending time with the Lord in the morning, or you're out jogging, or wherever you are where you're processing the responsibilities of your day, you're thinking through what all you got to do. For me, I'll sit down and I'll just be quiet for 5 or 10 minutes. I learned it from an Italian uncle of mine by marriage, and stand over at their house one time. He was a wealthy businessman. And I'm getting up and I'm getting ready to go to work, and I walk through the living room and it's dark, and suddenly I feel there's a presence in the room, and I look around and I can see the silhouette of my uncle sitting on the couch, and scared the hooey out of me. What are you doing? He called me Curry. Curry, good morning. I said, sorry to disturb you. What are you doing? Thinking. He's sitting in the dark, and he says, for 30 minutes every morning, he sits in the dark. Now, he wasn't a believer. Sits in the dark and thinks. He's ordering his day. Very wealthy guy. He had learned how to manage these three. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use A's to describe in our to-do list the most important non-urgent things that we want to build into our day. These rarely scream at us, only if we don't feed them. If we don't do something about it, we probably won't notice anything right off the bat. Kind of like a plant. If you don't water it today, it's probably going to look just about the same tomorrow, unless you didn't water it yesterday, the day before, the day before, the day before, right? So here's what we want to do. Any questions where we are on this? I want to ask you then to take, I think we can do that. I'm going to dual purpose on this. We're going to use this side and assume that you've got something that you use. It's a schedule, a calendar, a day timer, something that you're looking at every day. And at the top of that, what do you have written? You have your personal mission statement. Everybody remember that? Personal mission statement. We've been working on that for a while. And you're going to write that at the top on your pages. That's why we want you to be very succinct. You're going to keep that in front of you all the time. So it rolls off your lips when people are asking you, what do you do? What you're about? What do you love? Personal mission statement comes out. You're going to write that over and over and over and over. Small print, but at the top of your pages. Today, you're thinking about what you need to do. And the first things you think about are these 4 areas. You go through this list and think about the people that are associated with these top priorities. You say, wait, I thought we were getting our to-do list, all the things we got to do. I got to take out the trash, I got to wash the car, I got to do that. Yeah, you got to do that, and you'll get to that. But those are not the A's. It's not the A list. Those will come. First thing we're going to do is think about, maybe for me, it's my personal growth. I have some patterns that I've done year in, year out. It's just what I do now, because I know that if I don't nurture myself and feed myself on a daily basis, I need a Snickers. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You don't want to be around me. My wife doesn't want to be around me. My kids don't want to be around me. I have to feed myself. So I always start with an A1. Okay, I'm going to have an A2. I'm going to have an A3. Sorry, it's not 2. An A2. I'm going to have an A3. I may have 4, 5, or 6, but rarely ever more than 4 or 5. These are the A's. And I'm going to start. This is not prioritizing God. This is prioritizing me in God. I'm going to start with my time in worship, prayer, and the Word. Okay, you can call it devos, whatever you want to call it. And that becomes a standard for me. And then maybe I know that my son's acting a little distant. He's going through some struggles, not doing well on his grades. I need to spend some time and invest in him. Now, all this time I'm praying. I'm asking the Holy Spirit to help me in this process, because he knows what I don't know. So it may be that I want to take my son to the batting cages just to hit some balls today. I just know that I need that. So this is family, and I'm thinking through the people in these categories. And so I'm gonna put, batting cage. You say, really? Is that number 2? It doesn't mean it's the second thing I do. Okay, this is not, I do this from 8:30 to 8:45. I do this from 8:45 to 9. I do this from 9 to 9:15. These are the priorities of my life. And so batting cage with my son. Why is it a priority? It's my son. Family. That's priority to me. Then I'm looking at the other. What needs attention? Okay. I'm working for this guy that's kind of a hardhead. He doesn't like Christians anyway. And so what can I do to invest in that relationship? So I'm just thinking through these. Now, here's the reality. Some days I will not get to all of these. Most days I won't get to all of these. But if I get to one of these each day, Think about it. If I'm nurturing one of these at least each day, these categories, then there's two things that happen. Number one, I'm keeping my relationships strong and healthy. Number two, when I lay my head on the pillow at night, I have accomplished something. I'm fulfilling my purpose. This is the biggest thing. You will not fall into depression, despair, and lack of motivation if you are feeding these top priorities in your life on a daily basis. Rarely will you get to feed them all in a day, but that's not really the goal. So now let's say I've got a report that needs to be done, and it's important. Okay, it's a part of my job description. It's the stewardship of my business and the things that I have to do, and that is urgent. Okay, it's a B. If I go back and look at my grid, I'm going to see that it's urgent and it's important. That's got to be done today. I've got a final exam coming up. I got to have the PowerPoint so I can know what to study. So I'm going to make a call to my professor about the PowerPoint for the class that I need to study. I'm not going to wait till the last day, but I got to do it. That's probably not the best example. Let's say what's a family important and urgent. Got to take my child to get dental work done. Okay, I'm just going to throw some out here. That's a two. It's got to get done, and it's urgent, and it's important. These are urgent and important. Now, back up just a second. Think about the list we're making here. This one's important, but not urgent. So there's no alarms going off on these. But I don't want to wait for an alarm to go off. I want to feed it and nurture it before any alarms go off. There's some alarms going off down here. I've got a deadline here. I've only got 2 more days to work on this. So when I look at my list, I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at things I want to do proactively and then things that I have to do fairly immediately. And I'm prioritizing this. C, what did we say about C? Say again, please. Urgent but not important. Okay, this is probably somebody else's urgency, but because I'm in relationship with them, or maybe just because I'm human and they're human, it becomes urgent to me. I'm driving to work and I see somebody's got a flat tire and they don't know how to fix the flat and they're not really totally off the road and they're a little unsafe. Okay, I could just wave at them and say, God bless you, hope you're okay, or I could pull over and help them. So I'm leaving some room here, and this is why I rarely have too many C's on my list, because those kind of pop up when you're not thinking about it, but you'll need to make room for those. And there are some situations, for example, if you're pastoring, there's situations where, somebody in your congregation, somebody that you're responsible for, is in an urgent situation. They're in the hospital. So what am I going to do? That's urgent. They've been there for a little while, so it's not in the sense that I got to get there right now, but I've got to build that in to my day. So I might have a hospital visit down here. I might have a phone call that I need to make with somebody down here, and because this thing's happening tonight or tomorrow night, I need to talk to them today. So that would be on the list. Again, are we saying I'm going to do these from 8 to 10 a.m. and I'm going to do these from 10 to noon? No, it won't necessarily work like this. And so let me show you how this is going to work. As you get your list filled out and you're thinking through these priorities and you're feeding and nurturing as many of these as you can, different ones each day possibly, but you're always working toward your highest purposes. And these are going to be reflected here. Then you're going to think about when you do that. As you do it, let's say I've had my time with the Lord. I'm not prioritizing, not gonna lie, but I've had that time where I'm feeding myself. I'm nurturing myself. When I get that done, I'm gonna put a check mark by that. Okay, we'll put a check mark by that. And then as the day goes on, I'm going to check off the things that I do. And there's going to be some that, man, I never got to that. Never got, call the person that they didn't answer. What am I going to do with that one? Well, at the end of the day, if I didn't get to it, I'm going to draw a little arrow forward. For me, that means carry that over to the next day. There might be one down here in the C column that, you know what, that fire went out by itself, or they called me and said, everything's good. What do I do with that one? I put an arrow down which says drop it. Drop it. I'm not carrying that to the next day. I'm not worried about that one. I'm dropping it. But at the end of the day, everything is being tended to. Okay? Pretty simple. You're either going to check it, did it. Now, you might make a note on tomorrow's ledger of something you need to follow up on. It might be in a different quadrant, but you're going to follow through. You've done that one, so there's a check. There's a check. Here's an important one. I didn't get to that one today, so maybe I'll do it tonight, or maybe I'll do that as a first thing tomorrow. Okay, here's the key. You can play with it. You can do it a lot of different ways. Don't turn it into a law. But here's the thing: if you're constantly investing in your top priorities, as you've discovered them through your assessments, through your gift mix, through your personal statement, if you're investing in these, and this is where I would say in your weekly planning, maybe on Sunday night, you get home, you start thinking about what all I have to do tomorrow, then you think about the whole week. What are the big things that I need to put in this week? And so I want a simple way to get started would be to put one of these in the A column for each day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And as you begin to think that way, then it becomes less and less of a regimented thing. You just begin to know it. These things become natural for you. They become a pattern in your life where you're investing constantly in the people that are most important and you're thinking about them. What kind of questions does that bring up for you? Are you able to see these things? It's a nice mess. The other thing that this does for you, if you do it on a daily basis, you can look back over the month and you're looking, did I call them? Did I talk to them? Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did I go? Where did we eat? That, remember that place we ate? We met so and so. Look back. There it is. You're making notes along the way, and especially if you're doing something like having to keep mileage on your business car or something like that, then this works out really neat because you know where you are. Your memory gets a whole lot better, and you get to look back. Then when you're looking back, thinking, spending time with the Lord, maybe you're thinking about this past year and we're looking into the new year. And Lord, what do you want to say to me? You go back and you can see, are there some key areas that I really didn't invest in as I need to? What you're going to have is fewer and fewer things. Listen to this. This is probably one of the key things. You're going to have fewer and fewer things coming up in your urgent categories. The more you invest in these key relationships, not just the category, but the relationships associated with the category, the more you invest proactively into those, the fewer things you have coming up in your urgencies.
So do you have a day planner that you put this in? It's just a regular calendar?
I use Daytimer, and I've been using it for about 35 years. If you go on daytimer.com, they'll show you a lot of different formats, and mine is it's black and it's a full size like this, so it's kind of big, but it helps me not to lose it. So I need something that's big. And so it has both your calendar up at the top, and then it has sections at the bottom. They're laid out in different ways. You can look at different kinds and see what you like. But it would be worth it for you to get in the habit of carrying something with you that you can keep your daily plan in. If you're going to steward material assets, ideas, and people, you're going to have to be proactive about that. Right? Here's the good news. You won't have to be meticulous the rest of your life. It's going to get so ingrained in you that you'll have the A's already embedded in you. There'll come a time where you'll just know that. And people say, wow, how did you remember my birthday? How did you remember that? You call me just at the right times. Man, you send me these emails and they just bless me. What's that? It's a habit you develop about your highest priorities, which means your most important relationships. Okay? It's just a tool. There are 1,000 different tools, but it's one that I've used and proven in my life. And daytimer is a big key for that, for me. And the best thing I like about this plan is that it really helps you build in, not just to do. You're not a machine seeing how many things you can get done in a day. This is very important. And you can get under a boss that doesn't understand priorities of a spiritual life, and they just want you to crank out. It's all about productivity. Crank it out, crank it out, crank it out. I had a boss one time, literally a pastor of a church, and I was working for him, and he was a driven kind of a guy, and he said, you're going to have to work 6 days a week and at least 10 hours a day. You can't do healthy ministry on less than 60, 70 hours a week. And I said, I'm sorry, I may need to work somewhere else. And he was offended. And I said, look, the Bible tells me I have to have one day unto the Lord. And for pastors, Sunday is not that day. Sunday is a work day, right? And so there's got to be a day. So I told him, I said, there's a day where I belong to my wife and my kids, and I don't answer the phone for anybody. And man, we had a nose to nose. And fortunately, I won. And the reason I won is because I was married to his daughter, and my kids were his grandkids. And I said, my first priority is not to you. My first priority is to my wife, who happens to be your daughter, and my kids, who happen to be your grandkids, and I'm taking a day off. He said, fair enough. So from that day until now, my wife and I take Fridays. I just tell people, I'm already booked on Friday. Can we do? Sorry, I'm already busy. What you got? I belong to my wife, and I only do what she says we can do. Now, sometimes there's ministry stuff that comes, and she says, yeah, let's do that. That's cool. Let's do that. We're going to seminar or something. That's good. But we're going to do it together, and I'm going to submit myself to her plan on Friday. I belong to you on Friday. And you know what that does to my relationship? Yeah. Woo! It makes it good. It means that the rest of the days of the week, she knows Friday's coming, right? So she can relax about tensions in calendar and, okay, I've got this meeting, this guy's got a crisis. She can relax about it because she knows Friday, we're doing whatever. You know what I love? And this was the riskiest thing I think I've ever done in my life. I gave her a set of golf clubs for a wedding gift. Don't try it, guys, unless you know she's highly competitive. And my wife is, you'll meet her. She's highly competitive. I thought, if I could just get her to hit a golf ball one time, then she will have to, by her nature, she will have to conquer that thing. And man, now on Friday mornings, sometimes I'm wanting to sleep in a little bit. I'm getting up at 4 or 5 every day of the week, and I want to sleep in a little bit. And she'll roll over and she'll say, you want to play golf? I just say, I am in heaven. I'm in heaven. Where does that come from? It comes from making a lifelong decision to set certain relationships in priority. And that's not just going on a date once every month, though that's good, but it's a weekly thing. So this is the power of this little idea. Any other questions on that? To whatever degree you choose to use it, it'll work for you. One of the powers of this is it gives you the power to say no. When you've developed your day and the urgencies come by and somebody wants to hijack you onto their plan and their purpose, you can say, sorry, I'm booked. I'm booked. We've talked about orbit, critical mass, people pulling you into their orbit. You've got to be able to say no, and you've got to have a good reason to do it. And when you got your day and your priorities already aligned to your purpose in life, then you're going to have the power to say, man, that's a great idea. I love it. I've got a guy right now trying to get me to come teach 6 days a week in California in his discipleship school. And I mean, he is on me heavy. We'll pay all your expenses. We'll even fly you back and forth every weekend so you keep pastoring your church. We want you here. We want you every week for 12 weeks. Well, the money would be good, but it would impact all these other things, right? So because I know what I'm called to do, and I know the importance of the relationships already in place, it empowers me to this guy that is, man, he is awesome. I love being around him. He's incredible. He sees some of the most incredible miracles I've ever seen. He's seen a woman with her leg amputated at the hip. He's seen the leg grow out, foot, toenails, the whole 9 yards. Arms grow out, leprosy drop off of people. Incredible, gifted guy. I want to hang around with him. But you know what? I'm going to get sucked into his orbit, and I'm going to lose connection with my own purpose. So I have the power to say no, which I have to tell him today, in fact, on the phone. Sorry, I'm going to come out for 1 week, and I'm going to teach the whole Abba journey in 1 week, Monday through Saturday. My wife's going to be a part of that, so Friday's okay. 1 week. So you'll have the power to say no if you keep this little mission statement written in front of your eyes on a daily basis, if you come to trust and believe in that, and then you know what your primary relationships are. You won't get sucked out of your orbit. Okay? Now, let me read to you, and this is going to sound, it's going to be a very pedantic, elementary. I've uploaded it to your student portal in course documents, and it's been sitting there since the first day of class, at least first day I was with you. But my guess is you haven't read it, so I'm going to read it to you in these next 5 minutes. This is by my primary mentor, Dr. Jack Hayford, and some of you might be familiar with his name. I know he's spoken here in years gone by, and it's called Why I Don't Set Goals. Why I don't set goals. This will challenge your thinking a little bit, and I want you to listen to the whole thing before you make any decisions. So he's giving an interview. Somebody's asking him to do an interview for a magazine. And so here's the question. What are your primary goals for the immediate long-range future? What are your primary goals for the immediate and long-range future? The question came from the audience at one of our annual pastor seminars. He says, and his reply was, I have none. Crickets. Audience was silent. Dubious stares, blank looks everywhere. I continued, we never set goals. Now, Pastor Jack's church was about 10,000 people. Incredible television ministry, radio ministry, all kinds of stuff. He says, we never set goals. That is, in the sense of numerical targets, fundraising drives, or enlargement campaigns. Our one goal is to build big people. This is what attracted me to this man 35 years ago. He said, I've never set out to build a big church. My goal is to build big people. Every effort goes into developing each believer in the threefold ministry of worship, fellowship, and stewardship of the gospel. So I was telling the truth. From the time I came to Van Nuys, California, that church, 15 years prior to this article, I virtually abandoned the church methodology I had used the previous 13 years. I knew the quotes, aim at nothing and you'll hit it. And I knew the ropes, zeal, promotion, enlistment, persuasion, training, projecting, enthusing, inspiring, recruiting, educating, etc. The quotes held an obvious element of wisdom in the plain work of developing goals and generating means and personnel to fulfill them is a very practical way to get jobs done, naturally speaking. But it was at that juncture, the natural, that something inside me began to creak under the weight of the previous 15 years. While pastoring in Indiana and then working for several years at my denomination's headquarters and also at the largest college, I had seen spiritually oriented human enterprise at its finest. I had also seen it bear a certain amount of fruit. However, God brought me to this church with a conviction that there was a better, simpler way to do things. I didn't know what that way was, however, so the congregation of 18 members and I began fumbling, trying to apply New Testament priorities in ministry without surrendering either to mysticism or fanaticism. A primary principle evolved. I would stay away from the pressure to perform something I was well acquainted with from the past, the pressure. I would stay away from the pressure to perform. I began to discover the joy, number one, of finding direction through prayer. Number two, watching the fruit of obedience as people grew and the church grew too. Individual health. Would you mind shutting that door for me, please? Individual health became apparent in the larger groups, and we began to see more progress this way than I had ever achieved through promotional precision or evangelistic strategies. We did not set out to prove a point or challenge a system. We only decided that the New Testament church seemed simpler and far more fruitful than most of what I had been able to produce. When we investigated why, we found that the Holy Spirit was the director of the early church's life and program. Learning about goals. I was in prayer one day about the church's finances at a time when the monthly offerings totaled about $1,000. Now, this is about 30 years ago, but $1,000 is still small 30 years ago. I felt no complaint, but I knew there was reason to request for more cash flow. If for no other reason than refurbishing the building, it certainly needed it. I started to ask God for more money, when suddenly it came to my mind that I didn't know how much I was asking for. I stopped short, meditating. If I don't know how much to request, how can I pray specifically? On the other hand, God obviously knew at that juncture exactly what our church ought to be doing, so I decided to ask him to teach me. There's a real key here. Then it would be easy to ask in faith, since the amount would be his idea and not mine.
Come on.
Now, I'll just stick this in as a sidebar. One of the things my wife had learned to do, and really she taught me this, and we do this every New Year's Eve. We'll get in the living room floor and we'll pray. And we'll spend New Year's Eve. Usually we'll take 5 couples that are in our heart, and we'll just pray for them. The Lord will give us prophetic words for them separately. Then we'll come together, put those together, type them up, send them out as an email as a New Year's Day gift to those 5 couples, a word from the Lord. But after we get through doing that, we ask the Lord, what do you probably ought to write this down. What do you want to give us this year that you want us to ask you for? Notice this is a little reverse of what we usually do. What do you want to give us this year that you'd like for us to ask you for? It's the same thing that Pastor Jack said. Instead of making our plan and asking him to bless it, Lord, what do you want to do and how much will that cost? I'll tell you that one year, the Lord told my wife, she didn't say anything to me about it. I won't tell the whole story, but the Lord said, I'm going to give you another car. So she wrote down 3 things, but one of them was another car. And she said, Lord, with no financial obligations. The Lord doesn't give you burdens. And so 2 weeks later, a pastor gave us a car. I was kind of out on that. She didn't tell me because she didn't want to have to go through all the dialogue. 2 years after that, the Lord said, I'm going to give you a new house. Literally. And we lived in a condo up in Louisville at the time, and we liked not having any yard work to do because we travel a lot and that kind of thing. And so we were just happy as could be in this little condo. And the Lord told her, I'm going to give you a new house. She said that was so big and so obnoxious and so contrary to our conversation about how happy we were in the little condo. She didn't even write it down. And then we get together at the end of the New Year's Eve night, and we're praying over the things and out of my heart came, Lord, and thank you for the new house. I hadn't thought about a new house. She looked at me and she said, "What did you just say?" I said, "Thanking the Lord for a new house. He's going to give it to us." Within a month, we were in the new house, and it's the house we're living in right now. There's something amazing about asking the Lord what He wants to do and then rest and let Him do that. So this is what He's saying. Be still. The ignorance or the stupidity of the fanatic does not overrule the proper place of mature, biblically ordered waiting upon God for direction. The precedent runs from the Lord speaking to Samuel in his ear, 1 Samuel 9:15, to what the Holy Spirit said to the leaders of the Antioch church about Barnabas and Saul, Acts 13. God does teach and direct people who aren't afraid to trust Him, even if and when they doubt themselves. So I heard $2,000 a month. He's praying about this, $1,000 a month coming in the church. I heard $2,000 a month. That was the answer. And I won't be offended if anyone accuses me of imagining the number. Sure, someone might say, you just thought up that figure, or your subconscious suggested it. I'll only say that I have been surprised often enough by such promptings to know by now that they don't spring out of nowhere. The numbers have often been far different from what I have ventured. So I began praying. I said, Lord, I ask you for your blessing and increase of the church toward $2,000 a month. I felt you called me to expect it. I expect it. I thank you for it. It was my version of give us this month our monthly income. Give us this day our daily bread. He said, I prayed it 2 or 3 times a week. After 4 months, without any special appeals, we had come to that number. Why are you asking the Father for a specific amount? Well, it comes back to, have you asked the Father what He wants to do? This is an explanation. I asked the Father what He wanted to do, and that's what He gave me. Now, how many of you understand your percentages of answered prayer go way up when you start asking God for the things He tells you He wants to give you, rather than hoping He's on the same page with you? So he says, I seek to walk in the same simplicity every day, even though monthly amount is not compromised of 6 figures, is now compromised of 6 figures, and the church's annual total runs in the millions of dollars. I rest in knowing that we have not come to be a congregation of more than 4,500 at the time through human strategy or kingdom building or financial goal setting, but by rather responding to the Holy Spirit's voice at each step along the way. This does not mean we escape the practical duties of responsible management. All monies are carefully accounted for and reported to the penny. We leaders project our annual budget each fiscal year as we feel the Lord is directing us, and we adhere to that budget. But we leave it to Him to tell us what He wants to do. All right, that's all that I'm going to go of that. And that's 3 pages of an 8-page article. So you have it in your course documents. You can read that. I want to suggest to you, there's nothing wrong with setting goals, but for spiritual men and women, what does Romans 8 say? They that are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. And it's so easy for us to take on a world mindset that if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. If you can see it, you can do it. Dream big, go do big, go big, da-da-da-da. And that's how you get in debt, and that's how people end up cratering under the load of debt. I found it works in our lives. I want to encourage you, rather than writing down goals, ask the Lord what He wants to do. What I found in our own life is that the Lord's plans for me are a lot bigger than mine are for myself anyway. And if I'll just listen to Him, and if I'll go with what He tells me and ask Him for that, I'll end up way down the road compared to what I would have thought of myself. I'm going to leave that with you, and then we'll pick up on Tuesday. We've got 2 weeks left next week. Really, and our final is on Tuesday, not on Thursday. Just got that word the other day. Our final is on Tuesday. So we really only have 1 week left of study. So will you come in and really get with me for these next 2 sessions? We're going to just talk about how to develop ourselves at the deepest point of our being. Question?
Is it this Tuesday or coming up?
Yes. This.
The 9th.
17th is a Tuesday, right? That's not this next Tuesday. Right. Next Tuesday, we're studying. I'm taking you in Tuesday and Thursday of next week to developing yourself. The following week, 2 weeks from now, is our final exam on a Tuesday. So we really only have 1 week of study left. And then we'll spend some time on Thursday prepping you for what's coming on the following Tuesday. Yes, sir.
I remember I already asked you this, but just remember, there's no essay paper for this class, right?
That's correct. That is correct. Everybody breathe deep, deep sigh. Ah, it's going to be easy. I'm telling you. Look, this has been a rocky semester. It got off to a bumpy start, and then the COVID and all that stuff. So I'm going to make it very easy for you, and I'm going to make sure you know exactly what's on the final, and it's going to be a short one. And one of those things I've told you is going to be your personal mission statement. So think about it, get it down, and then I'm going to be asking you some questions about these things. Maybe give you a little trial run. What would your day look like? That kind of deal. How would you prioritize that? It'll not be information that I need. By the way, all the assessments you've taken, you don't need to send those to me. You don't need to send your personal statement to me. All you need to send me is the final exam. Once you've taken that. In fact, that'll be online. Okay. So all the assessments are for you. The personal mission statement, that's for you. All of this is for you. The PowerPoints, we'll go back and make sure we got all of them in. They're all for you. Okay. So you take those, do what you can with that. And I believe it's going to bless your life. All right. Thank you. Blessings. If you have questions, you can email me. Hope you're able to see some of that and hear some of that. Good. Thank you. Yeah, the 17th, Tuesday. If the 17th is Tuesday, that is our last day, and that's a final exam. So we've only got another week. I think we may have a couple more weeks. I'll look at it again. Whatever it is, our 17th. We'll teach you till the 17th is over. Final exam on the 17th. Love you guys. No reflection. It'll all be in a final exam. No essay. Bye.